Hey everyone. Today I want to take some time to talk through why you would want to use Photoshop to create text. You've already seen some videos about the basic text tools in Photoshop, and you can kind of see probably that this is not a text editing software, but there are some times where you might want to use Photoshop to create a graphic sort of text. And usually that's when we want to incorporate some sort of raster image within the text or as part of the styling of the text. So I'm going to walk you through a couple of ways that you might do that. And the first is super simple. So I've got a graphic here, a photograph of a concrete wall. And what I want to do is make text that has this image inside of it. So the first thing I'm going to do is come over and get the type tool. And I'm going to click in my image. Ooh, got some really big type. The word concrete. I'll do a select all. I'm just going to size this so that it fits on my screen. 90. And you'll notice right now it's centered. That's okay, but I'm going to move this around so it's actually centered in my photograph. Okay. Now, to make the text appear in the letters, I'm actually going to use the letters as a mask for the image layer. But the way that I do that is sort of backwards from what it sounds. I'm not actually going to even create a mask. I'm going to use some tools in the layer palette that will automatically create a mask based on the layer below. So because it's the layer below that's going to create the mask, I'm going to move concrete, the word or that type layer, down below my image layer. I'm just going to drag that and drop it down below. I can't see it, of course, because my image is filling up my canvas, but it's there hidden underneath. Now, I'm going to use control click. If you're on a PC, that you could do a right click on your mouse. I want to pull up the contextual menu for that layer. So I'm on layer 0, the image layer. I hold control on my keyboard and I click on layer 0's name. And you're going to see in the long list here, right in the middle, something called a clipping mask. It says create clipping mask. A clipping mask is a mask that automatically clips the current layer to match the pixels in the layer below it. And there we go. Now I have this text. I have a text layer here that says concrete. I have this image, which is sitting on top of that layer, but is masked away wherever there's no pixels on the concrete layer. One of the nice things about this is this text layer is maintained. So if at any point I decide to come back and change the word, I can easily do that. So I could take my type tool, for example, and click in this type and say, what do I want it to say? Maybe it just says wall. But still, that image will be in with whatever it is I type here. Right. Okay, I'm come back to the word concrete. I do want to show you a couple ways that you can use this that can be kind of fun. One, I can just create some type, super simple. It may be that I don't want to lose the whole image, but I want this word to appear in that image. I'm going to make a copy of layer 0. That's my image layer here. I'm going to call this one masked image so I can keep track of it. I strongly recommend labeling your layers. Keep things organized. So I've named this one masked layer. I'm going to double click on the layer 0 and I'm going to call this background. Now, if I come to my masked layer and I create an adjustment layer, I'll do hue and saturation because that'll be an easy one to see. And I change the color. And then I create a clipping mask. I want this color to only be in the word concrete, just like my image was. So I'm going to control click on hue and saturation. I'm going to choose create clipping mask again. Now what I've done is I've changed the hue and saturation of the pixels that are inside the letters concrete. Below, and I can actually get rid of the clipping mask here. Below, I have a background layer that's the full image, right? That's separate from, it's a whole different layer from the layer that has the word, which has inside the word, the masked image, okay? Still at any point, I can change the word. I can also come back to my hue and saturation layer and change the color, right? Till I find something that works well. Lots of options, really easy to come back and modify later. Okay. I want to talk about one more way that we might include raster image data in a word, in letter forms. And for this one, I'm going to use a black and white image. A sort of high contrast black and white image works really well for this. This is a great way to add textures to your letters. So this is the surface of Mars. This is a NASA photograph. And on top of this, I'm going to add a type layer that says Mars. Let's just be super creative here. Okay. Got the word Mars. Got it more or less centered on my page in my image. I want to create a mask that masks away some of the pixels within the letters that spell Mars with the texture that is Mars. All right. So there's actually there's a few ways to do this. But one really simple way that I like is I'm going to turn off my text layer here for a moment. So I'm only seeing the background. And I'm going to use the select menu to select a color range. There are a lot of different ways you could make the selection of the texture, but I find in a strong black and white image, this is a real simple, usually quick way to do this. So I'm choosing to select a color range. And you'll notice here in the window that opens, I have a few options. The one that's going to be really important is this one called fuzziness. It's sort of like how much of the black, I'm selecting black in this case, how much of that color do I want? Do I want to stretch and get like all the shades of black and into the medium grays, or do I really only want just black? So you'll see as I adjust this slider, I get more or less pixels selected in my image. And I'm going to pick something where I get what looks like about 50% of the pixels. So we'll try something about there. All right. If you want to choose a different value, by default, you're going to have this little eyedropper tool as you roll over your image, and I can click somewhere in the image, and you'll see my sort of map here of my selection changed a little bit based on what I selected in the image. Either way, I really want about 50% of the pixels to be selected. Okay. And when I'm happy with it, I'm going to click OK. If you were to look up close here, you can see I now have a very complicated selection of the pattern or texture from the surface of Mars. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my text layer again. I'm going to click on that text layer, and then I come down to the bottom of the layers palette, and I click on the Add Layer Mask. All right. If we look at it without the background image, you can see what's there. And there it is on top of the background image. Okay. So again, ways you might use this. One, you might just be looking for this really like textured text that you're going to put onto something else. That's okay. If I want to use it within this image, I might want it to be a little more readable, which might mean I need to fill in some of those gaps with another color. Maybe I don't want it to be just holes through the text. So I'm going to duplicate my type layer. So I hold down the Option key on my keyboard and I drag that layer down below. So you can see when I go to drag it, I get the double arrow and I'm going to drop it down below. I'm going to go ahead and click on the mask on this layer and get rid of it. I don't actually want the mask. So I see the little brackets around the mask. I'm going to come down and click the trash can on the layers palette, delete the mask. And I'm going to change my color. It's got to be something different than my other layer if I really want to see this texture. So I've gone down here. I've chosen a darker brownish orange color. And now you can see what's happened. I have the layer, the text layer with the texture on top. I have a text layer with no texture, just solid color. And then I still have my background here. If I turn off my background, you can just sort of see what that text looks like. You know, a little bit of Mars in the text. Okay. One thing I want to mention with this, if you want the texture inside your text to align with your background, right now, for example, these dark lines, spots really, that make up this line across the surface here, those also continue into the letters. If I want that to be maintained, but I need to move the type for some reason, I need to unlock my layer mask from my layer. So there's a little chain link icon here. I'm going to click on that once and it disappears. Now, if I want to move my type, I'll choose both layers and I'm going to move my type around. The mask stays where it is. Whatever texture happens to be behind my type, whatever part of the image is there, is the texture that is going to be in that letter, in that form. And as I move the letters, the color moves around, but the image or the mask does not. Okay. All right, so I hope that's helpful. 2 ways that you can make your text graphic. In the next short video, we're going to go into using layer effects to add some punch to these. All right, hope you enjoyed.